Okay, it's your boy Don Pro in the building. About to do a quick video about my MPC layout. So what I like to do is I like to take a BX console by Brainworks console in. A lot of people are partial to the SSL channel, but I like the console in. It does it for me. It's a dope one. I'm a big fan of Neve products. As a matter of fact, what I'm talking out right now, I'm using a Neve replica, of course, because that shit is extremely expensive. But a Golden Age 73 mic preamp that emulates basically a Neve circuitry. One day we'll get there. Or Neve, if you're watching and you enjoy my kind compliments, feel free to send me one. At any rate, and speaking of that, also, again, since we're talking about my template on my vocals here, I'm using this Kuasa Eve EVE MP5. It's a basically a pull textile uh, EQ, and also on my I'm using the IK Multimedia mic room for emulating the microphone to give me what I believe and what I hope will be a better sound. And I'm also using a Rode NT1 microphone. I used to have an NT2, but it got stolen. Some bullshit. Anyway, on to the program. So like I said, I'm using that Brainworks console in on every track up until I get to the drum track. And on my drum track, I'm using the Omega in transformer, which is basically simulates a Neve transformer. Then I'm using the Arturia 1973 pre from the three preamps that you'll actually use, and the one I actually use is the Neve. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Again, like I said. So yeah, and then on the bottom of that, I'm using the Brainworks. Again, I'm also a big fan of Brainworks and Plug-in Alliance. They make great plugins. Period. Hands down, some of the best. I find myself reaching for these more than I do the ways. Maybe you know somebody can tell me something that changes my mind, or play something for me that changes my mind. But when I do comparisons, for me, I like, in a lot of occasions, not every, because there's some that Waves makes that are fucking fantastic. For instance, the L2, which is awesome. I use on my master bus. So at any rate, all right. So we got the drum bus, the Omega in, the Neves 1973 by Arturia, and the Plug-in Alliance shed spread to make my drums mono. It comes like this, then you make them mono, basically, to make them sit in the mix a little bit more clearer. Then moving on, I have my instrument bus, which again I'm using going into the 1973 pre, and then the X trim. But newsflash, this just in, I'm actually gonna switch to the snap, because I feel like the snap just sounds a little bit more silky, actually a lot more silky, and just gives the instruments as a whole on that bus a lot more sheen. And then what I would do is, when I had those instruments in, so far as helping them in the stereo field, is I would adjust the overall feel depending on the genre of the music, how wide that I would want my overall instruments to be. And then individually on the mix board, I would also manipulate that by sending them to a reverb, which I'll get to my sends on my template in just a moment. Okay, so on the bass line, we have the again my bass sub mix or group, the Neve 1073. But actually, in this instance, what I kind of like to use is the V75 pre. This one is I believe is a Telefunken uh, preamp, and that one on the bass sounds really good, especially when you turn this up and get that light right to where you need it to be. This is dope. And I also like that you can resize this window. So let me make this 140%. There you go. How's that, you blind motherfuckers? Yeah, this shit is fucking dope right here, man. Sounds really good. Sounds really good. And then also, okay, moving right along, for my bass, I use the SK Note Disto. It's basically a distressor. And you know, I hear a lot of people talk about basically saturation and compression, and on the bass that really works well. And honorable mention to Sound Toys. Some I throw that in a lot, but lately I've been using Plug-in Alliance again. The black box. Yeah, that black box is just otherworldly, man. Otherworldly. It's great for bass lines. Also, another one I use is shit. Wave Arts tube saturators. This one is good too. It just depends. A lot of people say, "Well, get one plug in and then learn it," and blah blah blah. I feel like if you have the means to purchase other plugins to make your, think about all those studios, our dream studios with the hardware and all that stuff. They have a bunch of different shit for different purposes. So I believe that, yeah, get good at the stock plugins. Learn how to mix on the stock plugins. Understand what each thing is doing. But as you grow and as your means become better, whether you're just a young person who doesn't have a job and then you get a job and you can start, you know, building up your plug-in collection, I would suggest you do that. Don't get carried away, but look at other things, man. Don't ever close yourself off and say, this is the way I do it and this is the only way. Fuck all that. Fucking take some deep dives and explore and learn how to use other things, and learn how those other things in certain instances will enhance what you're trying to do. So at any rate, yeah, that's another one that I use while I go off on that tangent. And finally, again, it comes back to the brain works at the end of this, because again, I see where my bass line will sit, or my lower frequencies will sit. Usually the bass line is the only thing I put on here, but I like to send it out to give it extra volume, if you will, and more separation. So, and also I'm getting that separation by, so if we look at that bass, where imagine you're sitting in front of the speakers, this is where that bass is going to be hitting right there, right? And then my instruments will be wide, you know, to surround you and be lush and pull you in. And then again, I can manipulate those with different reverbs and how much reverb I send into them. And also, and then if you look at the drums sit right there in the middle. I said that before in my last video, but I always stress that it's getting a good sonic image and having everything sit where it should. That's one thing that a lot of people don't tell you is a big key to getting clarity. Everybody wants to tell you about cutting and boosting and adding compression and fucking side chaining and all that shit. No, panning and where your instruments sit in the mix is a huge part of clarity. More so than, not more so, but just as much so as good EQing. So at any rate, yeah, on my master bus, I tend to use, let's see here. I use, what is that, newfangled audio saturate. You could hear that as soon as I turned it on. It just does something great. You hear how much louder and clearer I am. I probably should have did the tutorial with this on, but I usually don't like to add my master bus things until the end of the session to save on CPU. But I guess I could just turn it off like that and cut it off. But it makes me feel like I have something to do when I go look for it and pull it up. Because again, I might want to break out of the box and not do the same thing that I always do. It forces me to explore based upon the feel of the track when I get to the master bus section of mixing it down. So again, yeah, that saturate is one thing, and then also what I've been using on the master bus is the L2, which I talked about earlier, so there's no need to go into that. Everybody knows what the L2 from Waves looks like. Shout out to my boy Taz. He insisted that I use that thing, so I started using it, and he was right. It does glue together your mix well. Now, again, following up with what I was saying earlier, event-tied omnipressor is something that I like to use, and I also like to use the again from Plugin Alliance. You can see how loud that makes your track too, and excuse the noise, there's a fan going on in my background. But yeah, this thing is awesome too on your 2 bus, but you gotta be, not in every instance, but in a lot. And if I don't use that, then I use the like I said, the event-tied omnipressor. There you go. This thing is pretty sweet right here. Great piece of software. And sometimes also I'll use on my master bus, I'll use the Lursen from IK Multimedia. This thing is tremendous. Again, you can hear how much louder it gets, how much more clarity and pump you get in what you're doing. So yeah, this is definitely a go-to for my master bus. I think what I can do is let it go right there. Alright, so there you go. That's my template. Hope you enjoy this. If you got any questions, hit me up in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that shit. Holla at your boy, Don Pro. Later.